This is Mark Milley testifying to Congress.
I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is.
He's talking about critical race theory.
Actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important.
So the main part of the quote, and we're getting close to the break, the main part I wanted you to hear there, though, was that he connects the January 6th, mostly peaceful protest. That comes from what he calls white rage, which is a phrase that you're hearing more and more in the media and among intelligentsia, white rage. And we want to talk some more about that when we come back from the break. What does that mean, and why is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff race baiting in Congress?
And we are back on the Morgan Streetman Show. And Morgan, you were just playing a clip for us, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley. And we do also have Murdoch still on the line, so we want to hear what Murdoch's take was on that clip, if you want to give us a little summation of what just happened.
Well, I mean, what I heard, and I think if you were listening carefully, although I ran this by a couple of friends of mine, and some of them didn't quite key in on this, which I thought was really important, which is Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, one of the highest-ranking military officers in this country, says that January 6th was caused by not just rage, but white rage, which is apparently something unique to white people, rage. And nobody else has rage, right? But white rage is what caused January 6th, and therefore he wants to study it and find out more about it. Murdoch, what do you think about a comment like that coming from a high-ranking general?
Well, first of all, I think it's very inflammatory, and I think it's also ignorant, being that Nancy Pelosi, even the partisan that she is still trying to get together her select committee to investigate January the 6th. Here we have a general who's out speaking about something that hasn't even yet to be investigated in terms of, let's use a popular term of the administration, a root cause. And I haven't seen any information out there to indicate that this was in any way racially motivated. But isn't that kind of something consistent that we see with this administration, with this whole leftist movement? And not that I'm suggesting that Milley's a leftist. I think, Milley is just a guy. I think he's just a kind of like a yes man. He just wants to go ahead to get along so he can go ahead. I mean, you look at the history of his career. I mean, that's a product of the Ivy League right there. Not to paint with the broad brush that all the Ivy Leaguers are the same, but this is a guy, I mean, you look in that clip, I think he calls West Point a university, which is an ignorant statement because West Point, none of the academies are university. First of all, they're academies, they're service academies, but they're not a university in the classical sense because a university is somewhere generally which A is larger, but even though there are smaller universities, it's somewhere where there are graduate opportunities. There are no graduate opportunities at West Point. There's no graduate opportunities at the Air Force Academy. There's no graduate opportunities at the Naval Academy. They're not universities, but he didn't go there. He didn't know that. He doesn't care to know that. He went to Princeton and got a follow-up degree, from Columbia. But I mean, his statements are just inflammatory and they're not based on any fact or any investigation. But isn't that part of all the Marxism that you want everything to be about race? Just like you had the crazy guy that was, shooting up massage parlors that were offering sex for money, who had a sex addiction. That was being portrayed to us by both the government as well as the media as an anti-Asian thing, even though not all the people that got shot were Asians. But that was the whole, impetus behind it. When what you had some mental health impetus with a guy that clearly had some sexual addiction issues, and quite frankly, he was taking out his temptation, which I'm not, again, justifying in any shape or form, which is absolutely reprehensible. But it's being fed to us as, again, here's a white guy, and this is racism, and it's all about race. everything with this administration, I think, and everything with this march to the left is about race because they want to divide it up, and ultimately with the common goal of being communism. And I think Milley is just a lackey, and I think that's all he is there, and he's just trying to appease the administration. He wants to stay the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He wants to try to sound like the most intelligent man in the room, which I think is very classical of him, when in fact I think he's showing his ignorance.
Great points. I agree with you 100% on that, including your take on Milley. He's not a thought leader. He's just a yes man, like you said, and I think that's how he got to where his position that he's in. Unfortunately, I think that's what a lot of the current generals are, because that's what it takes to get to that position. If you're a guy like a Patton, you're not going to make it in today's Army. If you're an individualist who speaks his mind, you're not going to make it to those higher level positions. You're going to be viewed as some sort of a disruptor. But what's so interesting about the Milley comment is the military, and I could speak from experience, is not a racial-based organization. We have all races in the military, and everybody, by and large, in the military operates without any reference to race in today's world. Or at least that's the way it was about 15 years ago that I remember. In fact, some of the least racist people that I know of are military people, the most anti-racist people, because you don't want those kind of divisions among your forces. You don't want those kind of negative identity divisions at play. You want people working cohesively as a team in the military, because that's how you win wars. That's how you survive battles, is with teammates. And that's such a big issue with the military. So now we've got one of the highest ranking officers in the military in our country, and he is essentially race baiting. There's no other way to describe it, in my opinion. He's race baiting. Now, what does this portend for the future of our military? Is this messaging? I mean, we certainly understand that it is being pushed out, that soldiers are required to attend things like anti-racism training. And don't fool yourselves, folks. Anti-racism training is not anti-racist. It's actually, the training itself is racist. It's just racist against white people, which is now called anti-racist. It's amazing how they've manipulated the language to change our thoughts and our ability to think about these things. And through forced repetition, we hear it from every media outlet over and over and over again. The thoughts sort of start to even take hold in our own minds. And we heard this recently, Joe Biden using the term Latinx, right? I mean, that's a popular one among the virtue-signaling uber progressives to say Latinx, because you can't say Latino or Latina because that indicates a gender. And, of course, it's offensive to so many people. I guess I can't understand it. It was like this for, basically the whole history of the world. You can look back at Latin and the way that languages are structured, and you can understand that when you use the multiple male, like Latinos, you include females in that. That doesn't mean Latinos doesn't mean all men Latin. It means inclusive of females as well. And that's the way gender's been dealt with in language for basically the whole history of the world. So to now come out and say that that is somehow bad, it even highlights just the craziness of our world, because they want to remove any gender classification, but yet we're making racial classifications, which are as controllable as gender classifications. We're making those highly important now. But why? It's like you said, it all comes down to divide and conquer strategy, turn people against each other, and have them fighting among themselves, and it's easier to control them. And that's a Marxist concept, what we see happening in our country, this Marxist-Leninist concept of dividing and conquering, and then it's going to lead to the vanguard revolution. That's where they want to take things. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.